Hey, you're listening to episode 23 of the TA Pedals podcast. I'm Tristan.
And I'm Stephon.
Yo, we back again. Yeah, it's early.
It's quite early.
And we are sleepy.
Yeah, we're so sleepy, we're delusional.
Yeah, I don't know what this is doing to me long term, waking up at 5 a.m. and then talking about all these crazy things.
It's only once a week.
I think it's making me have bad dreams.
Is it really?
I've been having some pretty crazy dreams.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's like a movie. It's like that kind of crazy, so it's entertaining at least.
Yeah, I don't really dream, so it would be hard for me to understand what you mean.
You never dream?
I mean, I dream every once in a while, but it's not a dream. It's not a regular dream.
Oh.
It's like I only dream when like it's like a vision of a future event.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I've told you about this before.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And then there's times where I don't dream and I'll sleep and think while I'm sleeping, which is supposed to not be possible, but I do it. So
like lucid dreaming?
No, like I can
like control.
Like I can literally sleep and think about things that I'm going to do the next day or things that I want to do in the future, and I can spend the whole night doing that and also get enough rest.
What in the world?
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, you might want to check into some sort of like government agency so that they can like study your brain, because that seems like it's a superpower.
I'd rather not do that, based on the history of government doing that.
Oh, Stephon, the United States government would never do experiments on people, especially nothing illegal or weird.
Boy, you tripping.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
The topic of this episode is literally that.
Oh yeah.
MK Ultra. Let's go.
Let's do it. So, first of all, let me just say your sleep thinking really is pretty weird and cool. And you might be onto something there.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like that's pretty cool.
I don't know. It's literally been happening for long enough to where I don't even think that I think about it anymore.
Wow. Well, if we're gonna talk about MK Ultra, let's get some background.
Pull out the pad.
I got my notes.
Flippity flappity of the paper.
It's my favorite noise. It means we're about to get into the nitty gritty. So, Project MK Ultra was a secret United States project that started in 1953 and ended in 1973. So, a solid 20-year period. And it was only brought to public attention in 1975. Before then,
literally no one knew about it.
Yeah, no one knew about it. It was completely denied at every opportunity, and essentially, the United States government was experimenting on people, trying to do things like control the test subjects' minds and also expand their consciousness. it kind of started because at that time Russia, uh, I guess the United States found out that Russia had been experimenting to try to discover like psychic powers, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, things like that. And, the United States being the way that it is, we were like, well, you know what? We're going to discover psychic powers first. And so we started experimenting, or the CIA started experimenting on volunteers by giving them drugs, specifically LSD, and depriving them of sleep and food, and also disturbingly sexually assaulting these people, and pretty much like torturing them to try to see if they could achieve things like remote viewing, where
which is a real thing.
you could. I'm not sure that I've seen evidence. I know we've talked about it, but very briefly before. But
There are real remote viewing jobs through the CIA. Like people really have jobs of remote viewing. Like they literally get paid to do it.
can you explain what remote viewing is?
It's where someone like it I mean, it's hard to really like put it into correct terms, but like it's essentially where someone like opens up their mind to the universe and catches clues of what's happening somewhere else in the world, and they're able to take those clues and piece a puzzle together that describes what's happening at that time,
Like
or whatever.
projecting their consciousness to see something that is a distance away from them. That's
I mean,
I've seen that too.
I wouldn't really describe it as projecting. It's more like opening your body to
Receiving the
accept
information,
that information,
like
yeah.
becoming a human antenna.
Yeah, it's weird, but there are real jobs, and people hold those positions, and they get paid to do it in in a government setting.
Do you think it's successful though? Like, do you think that these people are actually achieving things? Like
There are several accounts and examples that have been given that suggest that they are real things that have happened. Like for one thing that I can pull off the top of my head, there was a guy who did a remote viewing. There was what do you call it, an embassy in another country, and they had someone, like the people of that country had taken over the embassy, and they had held hostages in the building, and they'd had, like, our government had no way of knowing how many people they had, who they had, and blah 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 blah. And they used remote viewing in order to find out that information, and that information, whatever information they found out, was enough for them to be able to act on it.
right.
Like,
That's pretty nuts.
yeah, so it's definitely a real thing. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are like, that can't happen. You know? But there's enough evidence to prove that it's possible. So,
and
MK Ultra is the start of that.
Yeah, MK Ultra is pretty nuts. I've heard rumors that there are specific public figures who were test subjects of MK Ultra. Specifically, the one that I've always heard, and this is speculation, I'm pretty sure, but there may be some evidence, but take this with a grain of salt. MK Ultra is real. Everything we've said to this point is real, but like, I've heard that Lee Harvey Oswald was a test subject of Project MK Ultra, and that's pretty weird. And also there are a couple confirmed test subjects. And do you know the book, the one that flew, or what is it called? One that flew over the cuckoo's nest.
No, I mean, I've heard of the book, but
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, I've heard of the book, but I don't know what it is.
Me either, but the author of that. So you know of a very famous book where the author was a confirmed test subject of Project MK Ultra. That's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
And yeah, like with shows, it just reminds me of shows like Stranger Things. I know we're both big fans of that show, and no spoilers, so that we don't upset anyone who hasn't had a chance to watch it yet or hasn't heard of it. But essentially that's kind of what we're talking about. Like they take these people who are they suspect to be gifted with psychic abilities and try to expand their consciousness to see what the human mind is capable of. And just the fact that the United States government had official top secret projects like that kind of blows my mind. That seems like a movie.
Yeah, if they were doing that stuff in the 50s, who knows what they're doing now?
Mm-hmm.
And they have even more ways of keeping things secret nowadays than they did back then. So, we could have like hybrid mutant things underground somewhere. And that's kind of scary. Think about.
I have something to say about that in just a second. We'll come back to that. But in addition to MK Ultra, they had a couple other projects too. There was Project Artichoke, and that was the precursor to MK Ultra. And
it's kind of like, hey, we did this thing. Maybe if we like go more into depth, then we can actually achieve some thing.
Yeah, so like before they started with MK Ultra and experimenting with LSD and drugging people with that, Artichoke was pretty much the same thing except with morphine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they still did like food deprivation, sleep deprivation as well. And yeah, then they were like, hey, I think we're onto something. And they expanded it. And the craziest one of these projects to me is Project Midnight Climax. Do you know what that one is?
I do.
It's disturbing.
It's not so much disturbing, but like it's just kind of weird. Like, because it in a sense, like they're doing this thing to try to get results, and they're doing they're doing research, but at the same time they're not serious about it, and they're kind of just doing it for fun.
Midnight Climax, or MK Ultra started in 53. Midnight Climax started in 54. So after doing the experiments for a year, they were like, hey, let's try some new stuff. They just keep doing new stuff. And with this one, they essentially set up a brothel where men could go and hire prostitutes, to have a crazy time.
And keep in mind, these prostitutes that they're hiring are employed with the CIA.
Yeah, it's paid.
They are agents with the CIA.
It's paid for with taxpayer
They're
dollars.
getting paid by the CIA to sell themselves out to random people that show up at the brothel.
Yeah, so what they did was they set up this brothel and hired these prostitutes, and they would have men come in. They would lure men to the brothel.
I don't think you have to lure men into that.
Well, they
They would
did.
show up.
They did by they lured them by setting it up. And so they set it up. The men came in, and they also they set up the brothel. The men came in, and then before they engaged in sexual activity with the prostitutes would offer them a drink, and pretty much every man took the drink, and it was like laced with LSD and other psychoactive drugs, and then they would proceed to engage in the sexual activity with the prostitute. And
That's actually not a prostitute. CIA agent.
well,
It's a CIA agent agreed to doing this, to having sex with random people.
are you sure that I thought
This is what happened.
I thought they hired prostitutes. I didn't think it was
That's-
agents.
I don't know. That's what I read.
Oh, well,
That they were CIA agents that were female, and that they were. Yeah,
anyway,
that's what happened. That's what I
So-
read. I don't know. I could be wrong.
so the women would drug them in, and then in the room there was a window. It was one-way glass, and there would be CIA agents observing what's happening. So they would watch the man come into the room, take the drink, get super, super high, and start to, experience, the effects of LSD. And then they would engage in sexual activity with the woman. And then when they were done, the CIA agents would come into the room and question the men and try to get them to admit things, tell secrets. And this was like another form of trying to gain mind control over these people. They were essentially seeing if they could get them to spill secrets while under the influence of LSD. And yeah, pretty nuts. What did you find?
Okay, so they were prostitutes on the CIA payroll,
Right.
and everything that happened was monitored behind a one-way glass. So there were CIA agents in a dark room with like voice recorders and video cameras, and watching everything that happened.
Right. Pretty whack.
That's pretty weird. It's
Yeah.
like they're shooting a porno, but it's not a porno. It's
Funded by American taxpayer dollars. It's research, Stephon.
Anyway, it says the prostitutes were instructed in the use of post-coital questioning to investigate whether the victims could be convinced to involuntarily reveal secrets. And like you don't need to give people drugs to do that. There are,
Or do you?
like literally like every movie that involves a prostitute and this main character that goes to this prostitute to, because he's a lonely guy, and maybe he's in the police force, or maybe he's doing something else. Either way, he's this lonely old guy, and he goes to this prostitute, and he ends up falling in love with the prostitute. There's a lot of movies out there that have this exact scenario, and the main character would always confide in the prostitute and talk about his past life and his family and blah 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 blah. There were no drugs involved during this time. Like you don't need drugs to make that happen. Like a lonely guy coming in seeking out, a person is going to open up to that person regardless if there's drugs or not. Especially if sex is involved.
Yeah. I just think that it's weird that, I mean, it's not weird because they hit it very well, and even to this day, like you can find it easily on the internet, but it's never been like publicly broadcast.
I want to know what building they did this out of.
Yeah. It's weird to me that people don't know about it. People are starting to know about it because people like us are talking about it. But not like if you were to ask most Americans what these projects are, when they happened, what they did, they would have no idea.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of projects like that, but
did you mention
weird.
Did you mention the part where there were times where the CIA agents involved themselves in their own experiments?
I did not. And by involving
specifically that one,
yeah,
the midnight one,
yeah,
midnight climax, like it was like I'm watching these guys come and do their thing with this prostitute. I want to be a part of that too.
Yeah. Why do they get to have all the fun?
They couldn't resist. They're watching these guys do it, and like, now I want to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Like, you're doing an experiment, dude. Have some self-respect.
Well, yeah, I would imagine the video camera. They were like, why do I need to be back here behind this glass? The camera will pick everything up. I don't need to be right here. I could go out there and I could have fun. I could have fun.
I can have fun too.
Yeah, she looks like a nice lady.
She looks like she knows what she's doing.
That's so messed up. Like
I have visual proof she knows what she's doing.
Oh my god. It's so weird. It's so weird.
It really is.
But yeah, like I feel like ever since like the 70s when LSD got like really big, like people have started to become really interested with the expansion of the human mind and things like remote viewing, telekinesis, astral projection, and the influence on pop culture has been astronomical. There's movies like Insidious, where the dude astral projects and he can go into this other realm, and it's like a mirror dimension of his real life, like his house and whatever. And then there's a movie called Push. Have you ever seen that? It has Dakota Fanning in it.
I feel like I've seen it, but I can't recall what it's about.
It's like these people who have these powers that they can use with their minds. Like one guy can scream really loud and like break things, move things or whatever. And like then the main character, he can like move things with his mind. That's why it's called Push, because he can like push things or whatever. And so like there's movies like that. And then Stranger Things is huge, of course. And so like people may not know about the projects, but they're familiar with
what they were trying to accomplish.
Like the end goal of those projects. And yeah, people don't realize just how close to home that really hits when you find out the projects are real. The research is real.
One of the biggest issues I have with that whole thing is that LSD was created by a chemist through the CIA, How the heck did it end up on the streets? Where's the person talking about that?
Yeah.
Like, this was it. This was literally a government-controlled substance that was used for specifically experimenting, and somehow it ended up on the streets. And it's a banned drug that people commonly use. And it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah, there are several examples of the government using how do I say it? They administer substances to the public without them knowing. They experiment on the public without them knowing. Like I'm pretty sure the participants of Project MK Ultra, well, I guess, and Midnight Climax, if you're going, they were volunteers.
Yeah.
But there have also been instances of the government, the United States government, like testing on unwilling people in public situations. Like, I'm pretty sure I haven't been able to find it, of course, whatever. So take this with a grain of salt too. But I'm like 99% sure that a while back I looked up a video where I'm pretty sure it was Bill Clinton. He was apologizing for testing a chemical over urban neighborhoods like in Chicago and stuff, and they were flying planes over and spraying this chemical in the air, and it was supposed to be a chemical that made people less hostile. Like they were trying to experiment with this chemical for crowd control. So if there was like a riot, they would fly over, spray the chemical, and it would like almost like sedate people. And I saw this video, and it could have been fake, but it was Bill Clinton, and he was like apologizing for illegal testing, and he was just like, "Yeah, sorry about that." Okay.
As smart as those people are, they want to create a new chemical when they could literally just light a bush of marijuana and fly over somewhere with it. That'll calm people down pretty quickly.
Have you heard of the it's like a microwave gun?
I have.
That's weird too. They're testing that for crowd control. Like it's like a gun that shoots microwave radiation at people.
I wouldn't go as far as say it's weird, but I don't think that they should use that on their own people.
Why?
Well, microwaves give off radiation, and that can lead to cancer.
Yeah.
Like they're literally giving their own citizens cancer.
Yeah, but with all the other things that they've done, like, they don't care. They don't care. Like,
Long story short, by the end of this podcast, you're going to realize the government doesn't care.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, Sydney and I have talked about some things in the past where she'd be like I'd be telling her about one of these projects or something, and she'd be like, well, I don't think the United States government would do that to its own people. And I'm like, well, let me show you all these things, like official documents and stuff. And so we talked about Operation Northwoods, where essentially there were plans by the U.S. government during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And there were plans for the United States military to attack United States cities, like on the border of the United States and Canada, the northern border, and they would kill people. The goal was to like kill people and destroy these cities, and then blame it on Cuba to justify a war to the American people, so that they could like rally support for a war. So yeah, we were gonna like the government was gonna like kill our own people and then blame it on Cuba so that they could be like, see, look what they're doing. We gotta go and invade Cuba and stop it. And like, don't get me wrong, like I understand what was going on with Cuba back then was pretty bad or whatever, but like, yeah,
I don't
just the fact that there were plans to murder American citizens to justify war should tell you all you need to know about how willing they are.
I don't know if it's a good idea for us to go down that road because of the thing that happened about 20 years ago that literally is that's a really good example of that exact thing that you're talking about. So I think,
Oh, you think that that's what happened?
yeah, I
Oh,
do. I do.
I don't. So, but we cannot go there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind staying away from that, but
That's a very controversial subject, and
mhm.
a lot of people have hard feelings still tied to that, and to contradict them and their feelings is it would be a bad situation.
Yeah, I agree. But
But yeah, if they're willing to do that with Cuba, who's to say they didn't do that any other time?
well, you've have you read 1984 by George Orwell?
No,
Oh man, you really need to. I won't spoil it for you, but
you
it's
can spoil it. I'm not gonna read it.
well, I mean, it is like a it is like a 60-year-old book. Um, long story short, I don't want to spoil it for the listener. Then I guess I'll just say that. But essentially, in the book, um, the country that the main character is in, they like the government essentially keeps them in a state of perpetual war, and that's how they control people and keep production up and the economy going. Not that the economy really matters in that book because it's all like government controlled too, but like that's how they keep production running. Is they are constantly saying like outside of our country, people are being massacred, and it's an all-out war, and you okay, I'm gonna spoil it. Spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what I'm about to say, if you want to read that book, you have.
I'm sure there's several people that are in my corner that they're probably not going to read the book.
Well, they should. It's really important. That's a really important book. I'm just gonna say skip ahead 30 seconds from now. Essentially, in the book, they are in a perpetual state of war, and they find out it's a lie. Like that's only one of the things the government's lying about, and they're using the threat of war to control people and keep production up. And that's just one aspect. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. But but the point is that like we never really know what the truth is when it comes to government, and they could easily be pulling the wool over our eyes and lying to us about so many things, and it's hard to know what to believe. And but when you find out that projects like that actually existed, like plans like that, it's like, well, like you said earlier, what are they really hiding now?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the Freedom of Information Act, where you can request, documents like official government documents from the United States government, they have to give it to you.
But what about the unofficial ones?
Right. Well, also, the unofficial ones, yeah, like there are parts of those that are redacted. So they just like Sharpie over it and they won't tell you that information, but you can request the rest of the document and they have to give it to you because of the Freedom of Information Act. But the thing is, even with the Freedom of Information Act, when you make a request, you have to be very specific. And so they aren't forthcoming with all of these documents. You have to go digging for them and then specifically request them. And so it's still kind of sketchy. Like, of course, they're not going to tell you everything, just like they're not just going to throw it out there. But I'm curious what you could find if you just go looking.
I'm sure there's people out there that are literally that's all they do all day is look up different things that they could find.
Yeah, but like, how do you know to ask for something that you don't know if it exists? That's what's crazy. It's like, how do you find out about it to begin with to request the information about it? Yeah, like
You
you
come
get
up
shot in the
with
dark.
theories, come up with ideas, and
I wonder.
search for several different things and see if something pops up.
Yeah, I wonder if you can like put in a request that's like, I want all the documents that have to do with mind control, or I wonder if it has to be like, I want all of the documents specifically for MK Ultra. I don't know which it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'd make it a lot easier if it was general, but then it would make it a lot easier. So they may not
Yeah.
let you do that.
So let's talk about where MK Ultra has led now and what potential things could we see in the future.
Yeah, because I think, to my knowledge, the government has completely given up on the idea of mind control through the use of like LSD. But well,
But
first of all, we don't know that, but I'm just saying I think so.
I
And they're
would
going this new route.
I would assume that that's the case. Like they're no longer relying on drugs. Now they're seeking out what kind of technology can we use to make it happen. And so just to start the ball rolling on this one, they have been doing research for probably at least a decade or so, maybe 2 decades, on trying to link people's minds together, and or to remote devices, with their brains.
How would something like that be done? Like, how would you link brains together?
Well, I don't personally know how to do it, but there are several researches going on out there that have to do with like some sort of implant that essentially would like you would link like the implant would link your brain to another linked brain and or object, to where you could either use your brain to control that object or be controlled by that object.
Ooh. Yeah, so I don't know if you've watched any of like the videos of like Neuralink.
I have not.
Well, Neuralink is Elon Musk's like one of his projects, and it's essentially where you would have a piece of your skull cut out about the size of a quarter, and there would be this device with these very, very thin wires coming off of it. You would have that implanted into your brain, and the wires would run into certain regions of your brain. And the first step that Neuralink is trying to get to is being able to restore motor function for people who are paralyzed or born with like neurological diseases that prevent them from, having control of their body.
Well, that's how they all start.
Right.
It's this justified cause,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what, leads them down the path of getting it done. And then once they get it done, it's like, what else can we do with it?
Right. And I think that there is sort of a misunderstanding about how much we know about the human brain. We don't know as much as some people think we do. And we don't really understand consciousness hardly at all.
Mm-hmm.
But we are starting to, like, we do understand what regions of the brain have what effect, and to a certain extent why. And so a couple of the videos of Neuralink that I've seen, I saw a monkey with a Neuralink implanted, and he was able to play Pong with his mind, which is pretty crazy.
Like, what do you mean? Like the Atari Pong?
Yes. Yes. So the monkey would sit there, and with his mind, he would be able to move the paddle with just his mind.
Okay.
And, whenever he did what he was supposed to do, he was rewarded. And that's how they did that, of course. But then I also saw a video where there was like a group of pigs that had Neuralink implanted, and they were able to convert their brain waves into electrical signals. And I think that they assigned those electrical signals to pitch, which is essentially MIDI. MIDI is a little more complicated than that, but you could essentially like see the neurons firing, and it would trigger like lights to go off, or sound to play or whatever. And to my knowledge, with the pigs, there were like no adverse effects. Like the pigs were able to live normal lives while having their brains scanned, essentially, or signals from their brain read and recorded in real time. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But at the time I saw the video, they were saying like the pigs were fine. But then like later, I think I read something that like a couple of them ended up having some pretty severe issues, but I can't remember. Might have to look into that some more. I could be wrong about that.
This says to me that we're in the early stages of being able to develop what I like to call cyborgs.
Well, yeah, there's two theories. Sorry.
I mean, you cut off someone's limbs and attach robotic arms. You place a Neuralink in their brain that controls those arms, and you have a cyborg.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not that. It seems like we're not that far away from that.
Yeah. I don't really think that we're that far away from it. It's kind of crazy, but there's two theories, two schools of thought when it comes to like technology in the future and what it holds for humanity. And it's like either we develop general artificial intelligence that becomes truly sentient, and it is able to self-improve, and it sees what humanity is doing to the planet, and it decides to eliminate us. Or really the only other option is, well, I guess there is one option where we stop right now and we don't develop any new technology. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
And then the third option is we integrate with technology. And yeah, we become,
we're already in the process of integrating.
Yeah,
there's already research being done heavily on being able to transfer your person, your consciousness into a computer.
Yeah, when you think about it in a very crude way, we're already pretty much all integrated with technology, because we all have a cell phone in our right hand or left hand like 24/7, and we are accessing information, wirelessly. And yeah, the method of receiving the information through our eyes, is very crude, but you can imagine a time where you had a Neuralink and that information just went straight into your brain instead. And there you go. There it is.
Here's a thing that, like, if they're able to find a way to preserve the brain and then implant it into a mechanical object that can be controlled by the preserved brain, you could potentially live forever.
Mm-hmm. That, for me, that brings up the question, like the philosophical argument of the ship of Theseus, though, like we've
Yeah.
talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, is that transfer of your mind into the machine, is that
If
it's a copy of the data?
it's
Is it
not,
really you?
I mean, in the sense of copying consciousness into a computer, I would say no.
Right.
But if you're transferring your brain, if you take a brain out of a decaying body and put it into a robot and preserving the brain to where it can last longer, and still have the same functions but in a different setting, like maybe a mechanical robot or something like that, where your brain can control that robot, but your brain is still has its original consciousness in it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like you have the backbone of a ship. You place your backbone of your ship and you build on top of that. So like if you look at the backbone as your brain, as long as you keep that same backbone, you retain the same ship.
Yeah. In that sense, I don't see a way that people could ever like truly live forever, because the brain, even if you could extend its life, and I think we'll be able to before too long, it wouldn't be forever. And so any artificial replication of that brain would be a copy, so it wouldn't really be you, but it would think it was you, which is weird. Um, but there's also something I wanted to bring up is there are certain people who say that you aren't even fully, truly you without the connection of both your mind and your body. Because now we've started to show that even things like gut biome influence the way that our brain functions and the actions that we take. There are even parasites that people don't know they have, like toxoplasmosis, that causes you to be more impulsive. And so it's like, well, what does it really mean to be human? Like, is there a link between mind and body? And would it even really be 100% you as the organism if you were to remove the brain and like nervous tissue and put it into a machine? Because then you would start to think differently and do different things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I stand
I
as far
can,
as that.
yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from on that. And it just kind of raises, like, obviously it's going to be a slow process, it wouldn't be like, oh, here's this thing and everyone has to do it right now. It'd be like one person, two people, 5 people, 50 people, 100 people, like gradually over time. It wouldn't, and we'd be able to see how that happens before we can make that decision.
Right.
So, in a sense, I would think that if you remove your thinking, your programming from its original casing, then you would have more purity over what you are and how you think.
Right. That's kind of how I think of it too. It's like without the influence of all the other organisms that make up your body,
Mm-hmm.
that not your like truest self as far as your consciousness goes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's how I would choose to think about it.
It's joke time.
It's joke time.
A stoner, a Jedi, and a doctor all walk into a bar. Blunt force trauma.
Yeah.
Yep. anyway, about that brain control. Yeah. I'm curious to see what happens in our lifetime because, you and I are in our 30s now. And, you've talked about in the past, like in the next 20 years, they'll be able, or something like that, they'll be able to expand the human lifespan another like 50 years or something like that. Is that correct? What?
I believe what I remember correctly is in the next, if we can make it 30 more years, we'd be able to or like the medical services will be advanced enough to be able to extend our current lifespan from 100 to 150, if I remember correctly.
That sounds like what you told me. That sounds familiar to me, so I'm pretty sure you're right. And that's pretty nuts to think that within our lifetime we'll be able to maybe see something like that. And
I would, like I've always told myself, like, I don't want to live that long.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to live, like, I don't want to get to a point where I'm old and I can't do anything and all the stuff that comes with that. And so if we're able to extend our life to 150 and still retain everything, then I would be definitely interested in doing that. But if it's like my body's like, okay, so like a lot of people, when they get older, like I think the typical age range is like from 70 to 90, like they start getting dementia and stuff like that. If we can make it past 100 and not have those things, then yeah, I don't want to poop on myself.
Yeah, I've read that, with things like CRISPR. Do you know what CRISPR is?
No.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about that very briefly.
Okay.
But I've read with things like CRISPR, we'll be able to eliminate a lot of those adverse effects of like aging. And so what CRISPR is a gene editing tool. They use viruses to target specific sets of genes, and then they can use that virus like scissors and clip those genes out, and then actually use viruses to replace that sliced out portion with whatever they want. So you could find the genes that are responsible for cancer or dementia, heart disease, these genetic disorders or conditions that or genes that make a condition more likely.
Well, I wouldn't say dementia is like a genetic thing. I would say it's more like a getting old thing. Like when your mind starts shutting down because it's so old.
But do you know why that happens?
Because you're old.
It's but on a physical level, I think it's due to the unraveling of the telomeres, which are like kind of like caps on the end of a DNA sequence. And as you get older, your DNA starts to degrade, and your body isn't replicating as well as it could, and it starts to have genetic defects. And so if you were able to edit those genes, and I'm not positive if that's why dementia is caused, but like there are disorders, that are caused like that. And so if there's a way to go in and repair that code, and allow your body to start replicating like it did when it was younger.
Yeah, fix my nucleus.
That's my new band name. Fix my nucleus. But yeah, anyway, I think there will be technology that'll allow us to do things like that. And I think we'll see it in our lifetime, and I think it'll start with editing genes for embryos. You'll be able to choose eye color, hair color, height. It's weird.
We can already do that stuff, but the thing is like, can we all agree that could be the course of humanity in for the future, and that maybe we should not charge so much for it?
Yeah. I mean, if we can eliminate these terrible diseases, and
people be paying like $30,000 to $50,000 to genetically alter their kids, and it's like, why?
Well, it's like Sydney and I have discussed that too.
You're getting paid.
It's like,
you got grants for the research. The government pays you for stuff. Why you got to charge people that much money?
Yeah. If you can say that you were going to have a child, and you could genetically alter the embryo that child would come from, and you could make sure that it had a head start in life by increasing intelligence, athletic ability, muscle density,
telepathic abilities.
Well, I actually, this is bringing it all back around, but like, it's almost like you have like a responsibility to do that almost. I mean, you don't, but like, if it was accessible and you could make sure your kid didn't have diseases and stuff, like you should. It's almost like playing God, but it's like, why? What reason do you have to not do that, to give your kid the best, and the human race the best possible chance that it has to eliminate disease and be the best that it can be?
Yeah.
But coming back around, remember earlier we were talking about combining, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Earlier.
The hybrid mutant thing.
Mutant thing. We have experimented with making chimeras, like genetic combinations of different organisms. And China specifically, this is weird. And we're almost at an hour, so we might have to get into this another time. But China genetically engineered some kids to, yeah, I know, right? It's already weird. China genetically engineered some kids to be more resistant to HIV. And as a byproduct of that genetic manipulation, they actually have an increased IQ artificially. Isn't that weird? They made super kids.
Okay. The weird part isn't that they gained, intelligence because of whatever they did. All right. The weird thing is that why HIV? They could have picked a different, like a more common thing.
Well, because I don't know that they had the solution to do that.
They could have genetically
things.
altered them to where they can't ever get a cold.
Yeah, but maybe they don't know how to do that yet. but they do know how to make them more resistant to HIV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know where the research is at on that.
If you can get HIV resistance and increased intelligence, why not?
Well, because it's an ethical issue.
Is it?
For a lot of people. Yeah.
I don't get it. This makes sense.
I mean,
you're giving someone two very good benefits.
I think maybe we should call it. We're coming up on an hour, and
we need a nap.
The sun's up, and I'm ready to get some breakfast.
Oh yes,
sounds pretty good.
Breakfast.
Well, thank you for listening to episode 23.
Thank you.
And we're going to do some crazy, wacky stuff soon. We're going to do some conspiracy stuff. And eventually we'll probably talk about pedals again, too.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I don't know. I kind of am having more fun talking about random stuff on the podcast.
Yeah, me too.
Is pedals, you know, it's kind of never changing. Like a pedal is a pedal is a pedal.
Man, I hope that one day you will shift that line of thinking. I could not be.
I'm not saying there aren't a bunch of different pedals.
No, I
out
know
there,
what you're saying.
but a pedal is a pedal. Like it's a you turn it on and it does something like that. What else? What else can we cannot talk forever about pedals?
Man, you can't lump me in with you then, because I could.
Don't let me with you.
Don't lump me in with you. I get the girl sometimes. But anyway, we'll come back around to it. I guess we'll see you on the next episode, 24 next week.
Bye.
Bye.